Hey, everybody, welcome to the RC Air Experience podcast. This is a little bit of a different format. We are standing behind our work tables today, and we thought we'd try something a little bit different. So I'm Jonathan from the lighter side of RC. We've got Anthony here from FPV Builds, and we're both in work mode / podcast mode today. So it's I'm looking forward to it. It's kind of a cool, different scenario. So.
Episode 11, Two Guys in the Shop. That's what we're calling it.
11,
episode
I love
11,
it.
Two Guys in the Shop.
Episode
yeah.
11.
So,
Anthony, one more episode, and we have now surpassed what 95% of people do when they start a podcast. We got to get to episode 12.
I think we're going to do that. I think we're going to do that and beyond.
Nice.
It's funny, and you have a much bigger outlet than I do.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at 2 shows already, and I've had 2 people come up to me and tell me that they love the podcast.
That's good. That's reassuring, isn't it?
Yeah. So
at least somebody's watching it.
Right. So it's pretty funny to see that. And it's not, from a viewership standpoint, we've only been doing it for a couple of months.
Yeah.
But we've gotten, I think total channel right now is almost at 6,000 views. It's not horrible for something that just started out.
Yeah.
And people have great feedback, so I think we're gonna go. I think it's gonna be good. I'm committed to it. I think it's a good thing. I think we're gonna keep going.
Well, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying just doing it and fitting it into our schedule, and even stuff like this where we can keep working is kind of different, and unique. So I'm liking it.
Exactly. So this idea came out of me being in a time crunch, and I know you can appreciate it because this is where I am right now. I'm sure you were right before Kentucky Jets.
Yeah.
So I have Toledo, Ohio, a swap meet coming up. And for the last 2 weeks, I've just been getting stuff ready. And I design and print a lot of 3D printed parts.
Nice.
For FR Sky radios, for Spectrum radios. And my printers have just been running nonstop. I have 6 printers. They've been running nonstop for almost the last 2 weeks. But now I got to sit here and I got to clean all this stuff up. I got to label it, price it, bag it, box it. And I'm leaving on Wednesday.
Oh, wow. What days of the show?
It's Friday and Saturday in Toledo.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll try to actually get this episode out before I leave.
That'd be awesome because then obviously it makes sense to people that watch it. So
Right. So it's the Toledo swap meet in Toledo, Ohio. It's at the Glass Hidden Center. There's an indoor fly-in, small scale indoor fly-in, and then there's a huge swap meet. It's 2 days. So
very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
how many people do they expect to be
there? Between 2,000 to 3,000.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah. There's going to be some big vendors there. Hobby King and FR Sky, and there's a whole long list of vendors and stuff. It's a good show. From what I hear, it's a pretty big show. This is the time of year to do it because everybody's kind of getting back into the swing of getting ready to fly. So
yeah.
So I was like, hey, John, I have a new idea for the podcast tonight.
Both functional and new.
It's self-serving, admittedly.
Admittedly
self-serving.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but we do, in the background, me and John have been working on the regulations episode. I've been doing a bunch of research into that, and I'm actually happy that we didn't do that tonight and put that on hold.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole bunch of stuff also going on, not just with the remote ID stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with DJI drones in America, and the regulations that might be coming out that may affect every hobbyist that owns one of those drones.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think they're trying to put an FCC ban on them to make them completely illegal. So if
seriously,
you own a DJI, it's that a lot of the stuff I'm reading is they started out by banning them from federal and municipalities and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now it looks like they're going straight out. If you own one, it'll be illegal to fly.
Wow. Well, that'll be good to incorporate that into the episode. I'm glad we waited then because that'll be interesting to see what comes of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with that, and that affects just more than the RC airplane hobby, right? That
Well,
affects
of course.
everybody who just went out and got a DJI drone for Christmas. I mean,
That's
it's a big
that's a
deal.
huge consumer hit, basically. So
Huge consumer hit. And there's a lot of questions that follow that, right? Because they have 75% of the consumer market share and
wow,
like 80% of the commercial market share too.
yeah,
What who supports that? What
yeah.
company steps up to do that?
That's pretty wild. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's almost like the same thing that's going on with TikTok.
Yeah,
It's kind of very similar. Without getting too political, it just seems like it's all very political. So, but I think it'll be good to incorporate that into the whole regulation thing because it's all kind of happening at once.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are you working on?
Well, I had big goals to get the F-16 done this weekend. This weekend that just passed, I had it all in my head. I was going to work on it Friday, Saturday, get it all done by Saturday night, start the weathering process on Sunday, and I'm not even close to being done it. So that's what I'm working on. It's I guess I shouldn't say I'm not even close, but there's still lots to do. Like I've got to starting from the back forward, I just bent up my smoke nozzles yesterday. So I got to get the rest of my smoke system installed. We have to test run the engine and video all that, of course. We've got to get the cockpit installed, the pilot stuff installed, the canopy still installed and operational. I just before we started the podcast, I was working on the battery installation and the plugins and everything on the front end of the aircraft. So yeah, there's still lots to do, but we'll be done by the end of this week. So, yeah,
seems like a lot to do. So, talking about that, last podcast we had with Patrick, you had just gotten back from Kentucky Jets, and we didn't really get to dive into that too much.
Yeah,
right, because you had a lot going on before it, you had a lot going on during it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear about your adventures.
Well, it was pretty. It was just a great overall show. I mean, it was the downside of doing it. I got one of those little wires stuck in my hand. The downside to just before we started, I'm like, hey, I need to vacuum up my table because the little servo wires are going to get stuck in my hand, and I got one stuck. So come on, there we go. So the downside is it takes 30 hours to drive there with a trailer.
Okay.
I really didn't enjoy pulling my trailer there, but we needed to just out of necessity.
Gotcha.
So that was fine. It added a bunch of time. Like the actual drive, if you pop it up on Google Maps or whatever, it takes 24 hours from my house to get down there. Obviously, with a trailer, it adds 6 hours ish. So it was a lot of extra time. Yeah. Well, the thing is, unless you have a big diesel truck, which I don't have,
right?
You're fighting to go the speed limit, and the interstate, like the speed limit is like 80 miles an hour.
Okay.
Which in our world in kilometers is like 130 kilometers an hour. Our fastest speed limit on the highway is 110, which is like 65. So, it's a real struggle for most vehicles pulling a trailer to get to that speed. So that's really what it comes down to. And then gas is just crazy. And I don't want to be the complainer, but the drive definitely was the suckiest part because it's 30 hours of driving.
I know.
Yeah.
I remember texting you and I thought like you were back already and you're like, no, still on the road. I'm like, yeah, he's been driving forever.
Yeah. And then on the way back, we ended up staying an extra day. So it was super cool. We got there on the Monday. It was late on Monday, so we went to the hotel. Tuesday, we were at the field, which was great. The weather was beautiful. There was hardly anybody there because the event hadn't really started yet. So there was like 10 people there. It was awesome. We just worked on some planes and got stuff ready and did the maiden on my Rebel Classic and some other fun things. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday is when lots of people started showing up. My friend David started showing up, some of the guys from California. And that's when stuff kind of got busy. So Wednesday, Thursday was busy. Friday, the weather was terrible. It was like insane wind, like 40, 50 mile an hour winds.
So
So
not a lot of flying then.
no, zero. I actually did one flight in the morning. There was two of us that did a flight in the morning, and I flew my Rebel Classic Friday morning. The winds are probably 35 miles an hour crosswind. And so coming in for a landing, my plane was pointing 45 degrees sideways. It was interesting, but it was fine, but it was a chore to get it down. And
sure.
so the afternoon, we ended up going to the Pima Air Museum, which was outstanding because we don't have anything like that up here. So that was one of the highlights of my trip. For sure.
I'm surprised, right? Because you guys have a pretty rich aviation history too, don't you? I mean,
sort of, but nothing like to that scale. Like if you think about the Canadian Air Force, like we've got a handful of F-18s, and that's our Air Force. It's pretty sad. So
well, you
it's really
it's
really nothing in comparison.
I guess you were supplied planes from what, the U.S. and Britain in World War II, right?
I don't know, something like that. Yeah. So we've got a museum here in my area, but it's I've actually never been to it. It's pretty small. So so we did that on Friday, and we were supposed to leave Saturday morning, but we ended up the weather on Saturday was supposed to be the best out of all the days. So we ended up staying Saturday and just flying like crazy. Loading up the trailer Saturday night, took it to the hotel, and then left early Sunday morning. So that means we drove back in 2 days instead of 3. So it was coming back was a brutal trip back. So, but it was a good trip,
right?
No, my daughter actually came with me, and then Katie flew down on Tuesday and left on Friday.
Because I was gonna ask like what it cost in like husband points to have Katie go with you.
Well, it cost me her flight. That was basically it. And then all the money she spent shopping. So
I have Jackie coming with me to Ohio just because I don't want to drive 10 hours by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already costing me like unlimited Amazon shopping, or I don't know. The cost is going to be great.
Yeah. Katie enjoys coming, so it didn't cost me any Amazon trips, but of course the trip gets more expensive when you're down there paying for another extra person. So
your daughter drove with you?
Yeah, so my friend Stacy drove with me. He's a fellow that lives kind of close to me. We fly a ton together. And then my daughter drove with us as well too, which was great. It was actually tons of fun to spend time with her. So, and we had a blast. So.
Yeah. Is she into it? Does she enjoy flying?
No, she has never flown, but she actually did her very first flight. She's never even held an RC radio. So she did her very first flight on a jet when she was down there. And that was the first time she's ever held a radio or anything. So she was on a buddy box, obviously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
She ended up doing like 3 circuits with the plane by herself. So
cool.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
She enjoyed it.
It's good to get them involved and stuff like that. So like we're doing I've never been to Nall before. So everybody says you gotta go to Nall, and I'm not going as a vendor. So we're going as a family.
Nice.
And what we're doing is we're gonna do an RV trip. We're gonna RV down to Joe Nall, stay there for a couple of days, and then turn that into a little mini vacation.
So you're talking about this year?
Oh yeah, May.
Nice, very cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Congrats.
Yeah. And I'm hoping
that'll be tons of fun.
I'm hoping, I don't have the highest expectations of them being excited when we're at Joe Nall with all the planes and models and everything. My son's kind of into it. He's getting a little bit more and more into it. He's only 8. He likes the remote control cars and stuff. I'm hoping that once they go there and they see this operation that is Joe Nall, because I've seen pictures of this. It's crazy. Just from what I've seen online of what Joe Nall is, it's nuts.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm hoping it kind of, gets that little flame lit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think I know there's definitely no lack of things to do down there and
Right.
things to see. Like it's a
Right.
monstrous show, right? So
we're still deciding if like where we're going after Knoll.
Yeah.
We're looking at like like Myrtle Beach or someplace like that. I shouldn't even be working on these on camera yet because they're not available, but I'm bringing a couple of them to the show. So this is the V1 FPV build stand, John, for foam planes. This is V1.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, so V1 actually has a CG component to it too that is not ready yet. That will do CG on foam planes as well.
Very cool.
It's got a little attachment, and they're not bad. They're cheap, right?
Yeah.
Come with a little metal tubing, so that you can take them apart. They're collapsible when you're done with them.
Yeah.
And they just slide together.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's I don't really see any nice, small desktop stands online. You know what I mean? Like everybody sells the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Like the one that's my OV10 is on.
Yeah.
So and that you can't just have that on your kitchen table. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's what made me want to design these. So they're not out yet. They're not released. I'm bringing a couple of them to the show to kind of show them off. I gotta minimize. My screen keeps going dark for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, this will be like your pre-release of them.
Yeah, I want to see what kind of. I'm bringing a couple to possibly sell a couple of them. I'm not bringing a bunch of them. Listen, it's funny because I'm trying to price them right, and I got to think about the cost of the material, the printing material.
Yeah.
Finding aluminum tubing that's cheap, that's like sturdy enough, is impossible.
Yeah.
And then I have foam, that I bought for the tops of them so they don't damage the planes.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't sell them for like $10, right? Because
no, exactly. You have more than that in materials, right?
Right. So it'll be interesting to see what people think.
Mm-hmm.
It'll definitely be interesting to see what people think. And then I got 1,000 other 3D prints that I have to clean up, package, put away. And then, oh my God, I got a battery order for the show from my battery supplier.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why somebody would do this, especially for what we use the batteries for.
Yeah.
I have 40 3S 3000 batteries that have XT90s on them.
Oh my gosh.
Why?
That's brutal.
Why? Like I don't understand what 3S unless you're using it for 6S.
Everything should be XT60 for 3S.
Right.
Wow.
3S 3000 XT90. So now tomorrow.
Did you ask for XT60s?
I asked for XT60s. Tomorrow I have to chop off all the ends and solder on 40 battery ends because I don't have time to swap them out. I don't have time to send them back.
Well, here's a thought for you. Why don't you chop off the battery ends, put a piece of tape around the end, and sell it as a battery without a connector?
I just leave the connector in the box. I can
yeah,
because I have the XT60s.
Yeah, but not everybody maybe was going to use XT60s, and that's a lot of work, man. 40 batteries.
So that was the other thing I was thinking too: is how many people are still flying on like Deans and stuff like that?
That's exactly.
That's a good question for the audience, right?
So if somebody's buying a battery and they're using if they're using it with XT60, toss them a connector.
Yeah.
Save yourself the work, man. It's not worth it.
It's a lot of work, dude.
Yeah.
I was so upset when I saw that.
Yeah, that's brutal.
I don't understand. Why would you even put an XT90 on a 3S battery?
Yeah,
it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
I get it for the bigger batteries, for the 6S's and stuff like that. Sure, XT90s are fine.
Yeah.
On a 3S 3000 pack, why?
Yeah.
I want to ask them, why do you make this? Why? I have a feeling that they didn't sell those, and that's why they sent me a box of them. I really do.
They were on special for a reason.
Yeah, like these are a bad idea. Let's just pretend like we gave them to him on accident. Let him figure it out.
How's you guys' weather in your neck of the woods?
It's really weird. It's all over the place, to be honest with you. One day it's like
Yeah.
70, and the next day it's like 40.
Yeah. Is that pretty typical for there?
This time of the year it starts to warm up. The last few years it's been really weird, like springs. Like it's almost been like 55, 60 in like June.
Yeah.
When prior to that, you know, as soon as June started coming around, you were in shorts and a t-shirt and it was 70, 80.
Yeah.
But so like they're forecasting snow this week, and it was like 65 the other day.
Sounds like you guys are very similar to us right now.
It's very weird. It's just very, very weird. So
yeah, we were so we got a huge dump of snow last week, like tons of snow.
Really?
And today it was Fahrenheit, I guess it would be got up to about 50 and sunny, so things just started to melt like crazy.
Right.
Tomorrow is supposed to be like mid 70s, and then on Wednesday it's supposed to snow again. So
now, when that happens where you are, do you have to deal with water? Like, do you flood?
at my property, no, it's
Okay.
not at all. Yeah, there's very, very little of that anywhere around us.
So where I live, on the islands, we have a bunch of lakes and little rivers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of them that are like underground rivers and lakes with like the water tables.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't had an issue with it in 10 years because I used to have an issue with it all the time back in the day, but we graded the property, put gravel in, like we did everything to prevent it.
Yeah.
And for this last month, it's been raining so much that I constantly have water in my sump hole.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And now, like, this is all downstairs. My shop is downstairs. If I panned my camera around and you saw all of the inventory and boxes and everything,
yeah,
water is not my friend right now. It would be very bad.
Yeah, no kidding.
It would be extremely, extremely bad.
Then to give you my end of things, so this one of the new construction requirements is to have a sump. So we got a sump black thing installed in our basement. It's never ever turned on. There's not even a drop of moisture in there. So it's
nice.
It's quite a different spectrum.
I was talking about it yesterday with my brother-in-law, and I'm like, you know, I could at this point, it's had water in it for the last month. I could probably drop a couple of goldfish in it, and they would live for like a month. You know what I mean?
Nice.
It's just been
That's
full.
funny. Yeah.
I got lucky because I have it plumbed with like a valve, and when this first happened about a month ago, I came downstairs in the morning and I hear something just constantly running, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" Luckily, the thing was plugged in because I haven't had it on in 10 years. So,
well, yeah, for sure.
I'm lucky this thing worked. And I walk over to it, and because the valve was closed, it was just pumping the water up to the valve and just holding it. Luckily, it didn't overflow. I got so yeah, it's ridiculous. But we've been getting pounded with rain.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be any droughts this year. All right, those are done. Yeah, so when you were at Kentucky Jets, anybody fly anything cool that you haven't seen before?
Tucson Jets, and not really.
Tucson Jets, right.
Yeah, there was. I mean, there's a lot of nice planes there, but nothing that we haven't really seen before.
Gotcha.
So it was, I mean, just there's always a lot of cool planes and stuff there. One of my friends, Kelly, who lives in Montana, he received one of his BVM jets. It's a new plane that BVM sent him, or he ordered from them, and so he picked that up, and we actually ended up transporting it back to Montana for him because he flew down there. So
Nice.
yeah, so that was super cool to see. Kind of nice to be part of him getting that and getting it to him and everything. It was yeah, it's pretty cool.
I was actually just on their website the other day.
Oh yeah,
just checking it out. Yeah,
yeah, they make a lot of nice things. I mean, the company overall has changed quite a bit because you know, when Bob Violet used to be running things, it was different, and now a lot of the stuff they sell is made by Jet Legend, which is a company that used to sell just planes to anybody. But now, like, if you order a BVM F-18, it's a Jet Legend plane is what it is. So
gotcha. When you say they used to sell planes to just anybody, what does that mean?
well, like my second plane I ever owned was an F-22 Raptor, like my second turbine, and it was a Jet Legend
gotcha.
F-22 Raptor. So
gotcha.
So I guess they used to be like direct to customer is probably the better way to say it.
Gotcha. And they're not anymore, or they are still?
I don't think so. I think you have to order through BVM. I could be wrong, but gotcha. Yeah, I think they're just through BVM. I'm not sure if they would sell to anybody. So.
Any other planes that you saw there that you're like, wow, I really need one of those? I know you have the BDX coming.
Yeah. Oh, actually, well, I ended up selling my Kinetic, so it's going to it's actually going to Mexico as the final destination.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, a fellow named George picked it up. I created it on the weekend, so it's actually sitting here in the shop right now.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's the Kinetics is sold, and then the BDX. I'm not sure when it's going to arrive, but yeah, the BDX is coming, and yeah, I don't know if I'll be getting anything else this year. I'd like to get my T-33 done, but there's just so much work to do on that thing. I don't know if it's realistic. So,
right, how many planes did you end up having to finish before? Because I know you were scrambling. How many did you?
Yeah. Well, so I finished the Super Bandit, finished the Rebel Pro, finished Stacy's Rebel Classic, and there was one other one. What else did we do there? Oh yeah, that's what I needed to get done. And then we had another Rebel Classic that was already built previously, the Voodoo Scheme one. So.
And then you had Dave's BVM, right? The little one?
Yeah, that was the Super Bandit. So yeah, all those went down there, and he picked them up and brought them home. So
did he fly that there?
Yeah.
How'd it fly?
Amazing. It's flies rocket like ship? An arrow. It's a rocket ship. Heck yeah. Yeah, it's fast. It is a very fast plane.
Yeah, I'm sure. I couldn't even imagine flying that thing. You guys are basically flying missiles. It's like.
Yeah, it's pretty mental how fast that thing went.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's kind of crazy the stuff you guys fly, how fast it really is.
And it's not really, and it wasn't even rung out yet, right? Like there's basically 2 flights done on it.
Right.
And, flight number 1 was pretty timid. Flight number 2 was like there was full throttle for a couple seconds. If you really wrung that thing out, it would go fast.
I'm sure. What's the top speed on that thing? If he really, really wrung it out?
Well, in Canada, we'd probably be able to get, I think, 325 to 345 miles an hour.
Wow.
But when we're in the US, there's a pitot tube on the front, so it limits the speed. But yeah, so that's
gotcha.
That's pretty much what I think it would get to. It would take a few circuits to get up there, but yeah, I think that's realistic.
What's the record right now?
I think it's around 340, I believe.
Wow. That's mental for a little RC
Yeah.
plane, because that's not right. That's so scale speed would be like Mach 2, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
I
we're
don't really know
talking-
how that relates, but yeah, I mean, it's fast. So
right. You never know. You might see a day in your lifetime where somebody gets to break the sound barrier for real with an RC jet.
no kidding, that would be nuts.
That'd be cool for somebody to try.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a diminishing return because you have to, like, even to go from, let's say, 280 miles an hour to 325, it's such a huge jump in everything that you need.
Right.
To go from 325 to 350 the jump is just gigantic. So
Yeah, it'd still be pretty cool to see though.
yo, totally, yeah. So I think
So what about,
to get even like close to 500 miles an hour, it's just, I think the equipment you'd need would be ridiculous.
so what do you got in the shop now? You still have the Sukhoi, the big Sukhoi, right? The SU-30.
Yeah, the SU-30. So the engines should be here Wednesday,
Okay.
which is awesome because that thing, I was chatting with my friend today. Like the SU-30's been sitting here for a long time now.
Right.
I mean, since maybe I can't remember when we did the first unboxing of it, but like November, maybe something like that. So we've been waiting on the engines for quite a while.
Space, right?
Well, it does. I mean, unfortunately, all of those they're stuck here until Montana Jets, but
Wow.
it's just nice to get them done is the thing, right? So for me, I don't like having that plane sitting over there in limbo. I just want to get it 100% complete so I can move on and not have an in limbo project.
Yep.
So yeah, when the engines show up this week, we'll get that wrapped up, which will be awesome. And so that final video, I actually have video from months ago. I think it's episode 7 that will be, and then we'll just add the final video onto that. So it's going to be pretty crazy.
So you have that still. You have the F-16 still. You have the F-14
yeah, F-16
still.
will be done in the next week. The F-14 will be starting soon. Yeah, we've got the Bronco, which we unboxed last weekend, and that's gone off to paint now. So, but the Bronco unboxing will be coming, so that's a project in the queue. We've got the BDX sitting over there. I'm kind of waiting for my BDX, but I don't know when it's going to show up. We've got the Rebel Hot, which needs to get done here pretty quick as well. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
What's the Bronco? What's a Bronco?
The OV10.
Oh yeah, you have a prop plane coming in.
Yeah, it's come and gone already, but it'll be coming back when it's done. It's the big Hangar 9 one, the Horizon Hobby one.
You didn't do a video on that yet, did you?
No, I'm just editing the video now, so it'll be might be this coming Saturday's video.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have one right there. It's my OV10 right there.
Yeah.
So this one, Horizon one.
Yeah, this one it's getting all the covering stripped off.
Okay.
And then it's getting fiberglassed and painted, and yeah, so it's getting completely refinished.
Is that a full panel plane, or is that cover over stringers?
It's all wood construction. So
it's all wood, the whole body.
All balsa, yeah.
Nice.
So it'll be a nice kit when we're done with it. It's going to be electric as well. So yeah, it's going to be electric. It's going to be all glassed and painted, panel lines, rivets, weathered.
Nice.
It's going to have a fancy cockpit done. So yeah, it's going to be a cool plane.
The MB339 you did, is that covering over, or is that full wood too?
That's full wood with covering over top of it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because I know some of the kits that I don't know about I know some of the stuff that like Horizon makes some of those bigger planes, like the the cub they make, the Hanger 9 cub, it's not full
Mhm.
wood. It's covering over stringers, over I don't know what you call them, not stringers, but the whole surface isn't wood covered. It's
Yeah, it's
right
like
now.
typical construction. So
Right. It's just covering over the
Yeah.
airframe, not
Yeah.
wood panels over the airframe.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know if the OB10 was like that. I've seen pictures of it. That's a big plane.
It's huge. Yeah. The boxes were huge. It's a
Yeah.
big plane. Yeah. So
I almost bought one of those. I have nowhere to put it.
it takes up a lot of, well, it does pack up nicely. Like the crate
It
that
does.
that we'll build for it actually won't be that bad, but
No. But the
yeah,
wings
it's
come
like,
off.
there's a lot of disassembly if you want to break it down to nothing, right? So
Right. The outer wings come off, right?
yeah,
The tail booms come off on that?
the booms come off, the horizontal
Nice.
comes off, the inner wing
Nice.
comes off. So it's actually it's pretty small
Yeah.
when it's all in pieces.
Yeah. I was close to buying one. That would probably be one of the balsa planes that I would end up
Mhm.
buying.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of luck with balsa planes. They don't survive the hard landings. You know what I mean?
Well, stop landing hard.
It's just a force of habit sometimes. You know, it just happens. It's
Land softer.
I try. I really do. It's hard sometimes. It's so in the goggles. It's hard to gauge height
Yeah, of
from the
course.
ground.
I can imagine.
It's so. I've had and I've gotten a lot better at it. But I've had like my Bearcat. I came in what I thought was great, and I ended up coming in a little too slow because it's
Mhm.
hard to gauge speed and height, and it ended up just stalling like 5 feet off the ground. And
Yeah.
just landed, blew out the landing gear. You know, so it's hard to know how far because you have some kind of perception of where you are, but it's a lot harder than landing line of sight, believe it or not. Even if you're in the plane, it's hard to gauge how fast you're going, exactly how high you are off the ground. You want to add a little bit more throttle, you want to pull a little more throttle, you want to just nose it in. Like it's
Well, I think about my last full size flight. It was in a Cessna 172 actually with Patrick, and he did a touch and go on one of our landings, and he's like, "You want to land it?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll give it a try." So we came in, and like zero concept of how high we are, right? So I'm just listening to him, and he's like, "Okay, pull," and I didn't pull hard enough, and we bounced and came back up, and we came back up. He said probably about 15 to 20 feet.
Really.
So then he just powered up, and we did a go around again. But yeah, like and you know, I'm not trained, and I don't know what gauge to look at and stuff. Or whatever.
Right.
You know, like visually, zero concept of how high you are. You know, like I don't know if we're 10 feet off the ground, if we're 2 feet. So I kind of liken that to what you're talking about with FPV. Like I would have no idea. So
you learn it, and the only way you learn it is by smoking a couple of planes into the ground.
Well, yeah, and landing hard.
You learn, all right, now I gotta, add a little bit more speed, come in a little bit more level. Don't just try to dump it. In the beginning, I would try to just like get close and just dump it into the ground. Almost what you did, right? Right. Yeah. But now I try to come in with a little bit more speed and then flare lightly as I think I'm going to touch down.
Yeah.
So I do a little bit more like that. So the cool thing though is, and not all of my planes have them because it's easier for me just to throw a receiver and an FPV setup in it and not have to go through a whole flight controller and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of my planes have flight controllers, pitot tubes, the whole works.
Yeah.
And a barometer on it, and you'll get height. You'll be able to know like you're 20-something feet, whatever. But when you start getting down to the ground, that last couple of feet, it's not going to give you accurately. You're a foot off the ground. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So,
which with RC planes, you kind of need that.
You need like that last foot.
2 foot is a lot of distance for that plane to drop down and hit the ground. So
right. Right. So what I'm thinking is I have a project that I'm hoping to get to sometime by midsummer. I have a big the Banana Hobby B25, which is it's a 2,000 millimeter B25. So if I put it on this table, it's 2,000 millimeters, front to back.
Yeah,
It's
2
pretty
meter
common.
wingspan. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and the fuselage is about the same.
Yeah.
It's a good sized plane for an electric plane.
yeah, for sure.
I'm thinking I want to put, because I can do 3 cameras on a flight controller with a switcher, with a remote switch. And I'm thinking I want to put a camera that's facing almost on the nose down
Yeah,
when I'm coming in and landing, so I can kind of watch the ground get closer as I'm landing. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm afraid to land that thing because it's a bigger plane. You know what I mean?
well, I'll tell you, one of the projects that I worked on recently that wasn't in a video, it had a camera mounted in the wing, and it was actually a really cool perspective. So it was a UAV setup,
Right.
and the camera mounted in the wing. The way we set it up, and the pilot / owner of the company came here, so he was involved in the setup. We mounted it in the wing in a way where you could still see the nose of the aircraft on the side of the video. And I think that would be kind of a cool way to do it, right? Because if you look straight on, you can see the ground, but you can still see your nose of your aircraft as far as your pitch and stuff goes in relation to the ground, I think. So
How
I don't
far?
know if that works for FPV, but
No, it's possible. I've been thinking about that. So I've done it. I've done 2 camera setups where I had one on the nose, and like I'm actually going to do one on my OV10, where I put one on the nose and I put one on the top of the elevator, like that top beam up there. So when I switch to that top camera, I'll have the view of the entire plane in the camera. Where did you mount it mid-wing, or like was it all the way out towards the tip of it?
Well, the wings are fairly large. Like the wings are probably almost 6 feet long.
Okay.
We mounted it about mid-wing. All we did basically was started at the fuselage root of the wing and just moved it out, kept moving it out, and we ended up probably about 3 feet out from the wing base. And I've got the actual measurement written down, but of course it depends on the camera and everything. But
Right.
It was about 3 feet out, and it was a really cool perspective.
Not bad. Yeah, it's a thought, because it would give you that angle, right? Especially if it moves, it would give you the angle to be able to look left, right, down. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's probably a better location for the camera too, because that ends up happening if you have cameras on the nose and you nose in a little bit hard. The camera taking the brunt of it.
Course.
It's a good idea, actually. Might have to consider that. I also want to put a camera. So I was thinking the 3 cameras, and I'm like, all right, I'll put one like on the top of the nose so I get the overall feel of the plane. And I'm like, all right, maybe I can put one on the bottom of the nose. In the B-25, they have that front panel where the gunner and stuff is supposed to sit, so I could pop it in there and aim it downwards. And then I'm like, it would be really cool though if I could put another camera in VTX on the side of it, where the side turret is, and put that almost like on a servo, so I could give goggles to somebody else and be like, here, you're a passenger in the B-25. So I'm thinking about that as well, because I think that would be a really cool perspective too. That plane's going to have a lot of bells and whistles. It's going to be a project, but it's going to be really cool. It'll be a fun project for people to enjoy.
So does that thing run on how many engines? 4 engines?
It's the B-25's 2. It's 2 engines, twin Fortis packs. Yeah. I have a B-24, which is 4 engines. I have one of those too. And that is 4 engines. And I could do a similar thing to that too.
Crazy.
I have 3 projects that I want to get done before the end of the summer that must be finished.
Yeah.
I have an L-39 from Motion, the 80. I think it's an 80 millimeter.
Yeah.
I want to put a full flight controller, basically a UAV setup in that, with a pan tilt camera, the whole deal, and do the OSD so it looks like you're actually flying like a real fighter jet in the goggles.
Cool.
I already got the updated. I wanted to change. I want to make it from 6S to 8S, so I got a new EDF for it from JP, and then I got another ESC for it. I have that. I have the B25 I want to get finished. That's project number 2. And then I guess the next project is I have a composite wing up here with a whole carbon fiber wing that I've been wanting to get finished for a while that I haven't had the chance to. That would be my 3rd project that must get done before, October-ish. So I can enjoy them. Yeah.
You got to set a sooner deadline so you can actually enjoy them.
I have so much other stuff going on. It's crazy.
It's fun, man. That's what it's all about. This is the dream we dream for.
It is, and I enjoy the building part of it. The L-39 is going to be really fun. I've been wanting to do like a bigger jet for a while with full landing gear and everything because the rest of my jets are all hand launch.
Yeah.
Like I have an F-16 that's hand launch. Actually, it's probably one of my favorite planes, to be honest with you. Or there she is. This thing flies freaking awesome. It's a 70 millimeter F-16. And then on this one, you can't really see it through there. So I put a little mini digital display in here.
Yeah.
That reads out voltage.
Nice.
So when you're looking through the camera, I can see what my voltage is at.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a regular little LED display, and it just gives you voltage. Nothing special.
Yeah.
But I this plane flies. I love this thing.
Whose kit is that?
This is from Motion.
Okay.
I love this thing. I throw it. It takes off. It flies so good, and it's fast. It's a fun little jet to fly.
Nice.
I changed the fan and ESC in this one too because I think this was originally 4S. I just went to a better fan, more bleeds, and I put a bigger ESC in it. So it's a 6S plane now.
So those fans you're putting in are you mentioned the JP one. Have you ever used Schubler fans?
They're so expensive.
I know.
I was actually looking at one for the L-39, but the price difference between the Schubler and the JP is just it's more.
Yeah, it's a lot more.
It's a lot more. But yeah, I do want to get a Schubler in the future, depending. Mm-hmm. I see myself eventually because even before us doing the podcast and stuff, I started leaning more towards EDFs than prop planes.
Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time before I go to the turbine route.
Of course.
It's actually part of the regulation I was looking at. So Patrick brought it up on the show the other day, and he brought up the whole turbine regulation, but then he said something that caught my interest, and he said, if you're not flying at a FAA sanctioned field, do you need a turbine certification? Mm-hmm. And I started diving down that rabbit hole. It's a gray area.
Okay.
It's a gray area.
Is it a gray area with some clearly defined edges, or is it?
I'm trying to find out. I can't find a lot of data on it. I really can't.
Yeah.
There really isn't like a hard and fast rule that I found.
See, with and of course we'll dive more into this, but we've basically got two different. Our regulations are quite confusing because we have two different categories. So we've got basic and advanced RPAS, and the basic, essentially, we can go flying at our fields. The advanced, you can still go flying at the fields, but the advanced, you're able to fly in different locations. Okay. But even then, like with my basic, if I'm not close to an airfield or a helipad or whatever, I can still technically fly in non-designated locations.
Right.
So it's a real weird gray area with that too. I mean, I haven't spent enough time to know it 100%, but yeah, it's odd.
But now,
Very
do you need a turbine specific certification to fly a turbine? So that's what I'm trying to figure out is from what
Yeah, in
I've
Canada,
kind of
no.
been right. So what I've been kind of figure out and kind of reading and seeing is like you need a turbine certification, I guess, at like an FAA field.
Yes.
If I was to go buy, and I wouldn't do this
at an AMA field.
right, exactly. I wouldn't go out and buy a turbine and go fly it at my kid's school field where I do some of my flying because that would just be ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But if I had my own piece of property or if I was visiting property upstate or something and I wasn't at an AMA field, am I breaking the law flying a turbine?
Yeah, that
I don't have the certification.
Exactly.
Right. So that's look, I if I do go turbine, I'll end up playing by the rules, right? Because I don't want to do anything that's going to get somebody to mess with me, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That it's just easier to obey than to not and have to deal with it all. I learned about all of that recently with having to get a license for customs and stuff like that to import the stuff that I've been buying.
Yeah.
And the lady that I was working with one of these brokerage companies is like, customs is like the IRS. You just pay what they tell you to pay. You say yes, no problem, or else they make your life a living hell, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Here's your money. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm guessing that dealing with the FAA on some of this stuff is probably similar to that.
Yeah.
So I would rather be legal. But to Patrick's point the other day, a lot of regulation is it's not clearly defined. It's pretty gray. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. It will be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see much longer it takes for me to get into the world of turbines.
Well, I'll keep pushing you.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I was looking at the L39 when I was getting the EDF set up, and I'm like, I've seen people do a conversion on these before.
Yeah. Nice little Zykoy 45 in there, tiny little Red Bull can size turbine, pop can size.
Right. I've seen it done, so I'm like, should I spend the money on that or should I get a turbine? Nah, not yet.
Just need a pipe and a fuel tank.
The turbine comes with the motor, with the controller and everything, right?
Yeah. Basically, it's the turbine that you need, a pipe suitable for the plane, and the suitable fuel tank, and that's basically it.
And what'd you say, 45? What?
Yeah, the Zykoy 45. For those small ones, the 45 is really the right engine. Like it's the smallest engine out there, basically.
It's plenty for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's got you're 4.5 kilograms of thrust, so 5. So you're about almost 12 pounds of push.
Yeah, and you don't have that in that plane.
No
way. Plane probably all up is 8 pounds, somewhere around there with the battery and everything.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I made the commitment on the electric setup, so I'm not going to back out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Got to get a Schubler first. I couldn't imagine. So I was trying to price out talking about the Schublers. Rami and Tyler Perry did that big global.
Yeah, the huge DC. Yeah.
Right. All the ESCs and Schublers and that thing, and those are the big ones, right? So those are $2,000 a pop or whatever they are for an EDF.
120 millimeter ones. Yeah.
Probably more than that, right? And it's like, dude, what does he have in that setup? Like that plane is banked. Like he's got a lot of money in that.
Yeah, for sure. And the batteries are pretty sick too.
Batteries.
The one Schubler that we had here went in a little MiG, the Hobby King MiG that I built that didn't have a good ending. But I think that thing was like $900 landed.
Yeah, I forgot
So, and that was a
crashed, right?
90 millimeter size. Yeah. Basically
How
lost
do you-
signal.
How do you deal with that? Like that's the customer's plane. What happens then?
Well, basically, actually, and that's a good question. A lot of people ask that. Like, essentially, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, can you fly my plane? Can you do the maiden on my plane?" Then whatever happens is on that person.
Gotcha.
If I am inverted on the maiden flight and I pull up and I pound it into the ground, that's on me.
Right.
But, if you're flying and as a pilot, you do the best that you can, and it's clearly not your issue, then it's on that person basically. And that goes with whether it's one of my customers or whether I'm at the field and somebody's like, "Hey, can you maiden my plane for me?" Because that happens on a very regular basis.
I'm sure.
And there was a guy actually 2 years ago. We went to the Littlest Airport event, which is our July 1st event. And he had a homemade Bronco OB10 and just set up with like kind of crappy running gas engines. The servos were like really old servos with tons of play. And his name is Dennis. I'm like, "Are you sure you want me to fly this, Dennis?" He's like, "Yep, you fly it. It's all good." So I took the thing off and it's barely flying, right? And you have the whole event watching you during this. So I trimmed it out, did some circuits with it, flew it for about 5-6 minutes, and then brought it in. And it could have easily crashed because it was pretty rough. But
Right.
if it did crash, he asked me to do the maiden for him, right? So that's really what it comes down to.
I'm sure you've had to have some rough conversations, right? I mean,
Yeah, of course.
yeah. It's scary. Any maiden is kind of nerve wracking, right? It doesn't matter who's
For
flying
sure.
it.
Absolutely.
That's the whole, I guess, joy of the maiden. I don't know if you can call maidens joyous.
Well, they are. I mean, it depends on the plane, though. Like a sports jet's pretty uneventful. Like you bring it up, you trim it out in all different flight modes, and then you fly a little bit and you land. Right. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Generally, fairly uneventful, but you obviously prepare for the worst. So,
what's concerning me now, and one of the things I've been trying to, I'm actually making a video about it soon. There's a bunch of newer creators out who have a lot of following and stuff, and they make it seem like you buy a plane, you pop it out of the box, and you throw it up in the air, and you fly. And a lot of people are having bad experiences.
Yeah.
Right out of the box because there's a lot more to it than that, right? It's the CG. Make sure your control surfaces are going right in the right directions. Mm-hmm. Make sure everything's tight. All your little control rods and everything are properly on the horns and everything like that. And I think that's something a lot of people don't do, and then they get all disappointed with the hobby. Maidens are nerve-wracking to me. I spend a lot of time making sure that stuff is right before I throw anything in the air. Mm-hmm. If it's not working right, I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, that's always the best thing to do.
Yeah. So, what time is it? It's 9:54. I think we can cut this one a little short tonight.
Cool.
I'm going to Ohio, and then when's my what'd you say, Montana Jets? When's that coming up?
Yeah, Montana Jets is mid-June, so I've got a nice 2.5 months to go crazy. So
nice, yeah. So we'll be doing the regulation episode pretty soon, and then after that, we'll see what direction. Maybe we'll have a couple of guests back on, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, man.
All right,
good luck at your good luck at your show and stuff, and hopefully that goes well for you.
I only have 2 more boxes of 3D printed parts to clean up, and I love supports. I'm gonna make a T-shirt that says "I love supports."
Nice.
Have a good night, dude.
Awesome. See ya.
Thanks for watching, everybody.